today we'll be going over just a welcome and a little bit of information. Then we'll kick into the Activate community details. Then we'll jump into our discussion with our three Activate fellows this afternoon, and then we'll close it out with some next steps. And just to call it out, I am Kerrigan Turner. I am the Outreach Associate here at Activate. And joined with me, I have Joshua Weems, which is the Fellowship Recruitment Intern, as well as Rick Kempinski, the Director of Fellowship Recruitment. If you have any issues accessing anything in the chat for any problems, you're more than welcome to reach out to any of us in the chat. Without further ado, let's get started. So the Activate community details. Activate started in Berkeley, but we have grown to the Northeast and most recently the South with the addition of Activate Houston this year. These four in-residence communities allow fellows to immerse themselves in founder-forward cities with strong ecosystems and resources to thrive. And for those who want to make an impact in their local communities, we introduced Activate Anywhere in 2021, allowing for a virtual experience from the comforts of your own home with quarterly in-person visits to encourage that community bonding. For more information on what you actually access once you get into the communities, one big benefit about being in an in-residence community is accessing that lab space, as each community does have a unique model in which they partner with either national or local labs or have relationships within the ecosystem to access that lab space. But what does a typical lab space or workspace rental look like? Well, our staff help build and maintain these active relationships with universities and private labs in the local area, as well as other accelerators, incubators, and private businesses to help sustain relationships to provide you with those benefits. We provide information and introductions, and in a few cases, fellows can access a modest discount at market rate for the services at the lab. Our team will advise fellows as needed to help identify the needs, negotiate the best terms for that lab or workspace, and determine the timing of access in accordance with their company timeline. Fellows can use that $100,000 R&D funding for the project to pay for their lab access during the time. And fellows are expected to choose a lab space that allows their desired control over their IP and allows independence from their university affiliations if you are currently researching or conducting this research in an academic environment. For those community relationships, our Activate communities all have relationships again within the ecosystem to ensure that you are successful and have the resources to develop your product. I will say that the unique aspect of the Anywhere community is that they encourage identifying a host lab space where again you are in control of your IP generation, and again it is established outside of a separate entity outside of the university that you are affiliated with. But for others like Berkeley, you do have the relationship with the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. For Activate Boston, you can work with places as well as universities and private labs in the Boston area, as well as places like the Engine. For Houston, you can access places like the ION as well as Greentown Labs or the Tech Bridge at the University of Houston. And for Activate New York, they do have a relationship with Columbia University as well as other accelerators and private businesses in the area to access lab or workspace. And to talk a little bit about the communities themselves, they are consistently rated the most important aspect of the fellowship by our fellows. And so what do the differences look like between an in-residence community, the Activate Anywhere community, and then all Activate communities? So for in-residence communities, you will have those opportunities to again meet in person on a regular basis for happy hours, programmings, and other events. You will have to meet the cohort event as well with ecosystem partners in the area in person. Again, with that in-person programming and meeting on a regular basis, you do have programming and networking every other Thursday that is inside the Activate office. Again, you will have that access to the local lab space, and you do receive $4,000 in a relocation stipend if you are moving into the in-residence community and you are 70 plus miles outside of that in-residence community at your current location. And there is also international relocation available. For the Activate Anywhere community, again, you will be participating in the Activate Fellowship virtually. So you'll be participating essentially from your own home or your own community. So you will have the opportunity to meet with your cohort and the community team in person quarterly, mostly around an event such as New York Climate Week coming up in September. You will have the community building virtually, so you'll meet for programming as well as the elements of entrepreneurship or the national programming on a weekly basis, but it will all be virtual. You'll also have a virtual meet the cohort event as well. And your MD will work with you particularly to help you find what lab space should look like for you, lab or workspace should look like for you in your community. For all Activate communities, they all receive the same amount of stipend, R&D funding, as well as the other additional benefits that are not mentioned above. Attendance is required at the June retreat or annual retreat and reunion for Activate fellows and staff. You can participate in virtual national programming, again, as I mentioned earlier, with the elements of entrepreneurship. You're invited to those demo days, the annual retreat, as well as all fellow all hands days. And you are just connected to the network of current and alumni fellows, both virtually as well as in person. And so with that, that is all the information that I have right now. So now we're about to get into these fellows. We're fortunate to have with us today two fellows who are at the start of their Activate journey, and one is who is in the midst of his second year of the fellowship. Together, they'll share what motivated them to take the CEO path to commercialize their technology, their experiences leading up to Activate, as well as how their community choices have influenced their fellowship experience. So without further ado, I do have Wyatt Arnold here with us at part of cohort 2024 out of the Activate Boston community. I have Carla Pinson, who is also part of Activate 2024 out of the Activate Berkeley community, and Patrick Sullivan, who is a part of cohort 2023 out of the Anywhere community. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I am actually going to add them. Perfect. Thank you for adding those in the spotlight. So without further ado, let's get started. So each of you, can you please introduce yourselves first of all, but then provide a brief background about yourself, your technology and company, and your career path? And whoever wants to go first.
I can jump in, I guess. Hey everybody, my name is Wyatt Arnold. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Prospect Growth. We're trying to develop and manufacture some next generation fertilizers, which are more bioavailable, with the hope that they can allow farmers to use less fertilizer, which is better for them, but also lose less fertilizer, which is better for the planet, hopefully. A little bit about, I guess, who I am. I'll start at the origin. I was born and raised in Indiana, northern Indiana. I spent a lot of time when I was growing up working on my family's timber farm out there, and that's sort of like maybe what kind of led me to a focus on agriculture, climate, the natural world. From there, I went on to the University of Chicago. I got a background in bio and geoscience. After that, I spent some time at Argonne National Lab, doing some high throughput sequencing work. I would say, like, getting a little bit more comfortable in the scientific world. Um, from there, I went to Yale to do a PhD in chemical and environmental engineering. At Yale, my work mostly focused on the development of like methane suppressing fertilizers, as well as some research on plant and soil biogeochemistry. It was there that I met my co-founder, Andreas, who's also a PhD from Yale. His background is specifically in nanomaterials chemistry, and so we sort of started a research collaboration the better part of like a year and a half ago, to think about ways we could make nanomaterials more sustainably, with sort of this agricultural focus. That research turned out fairly well. So that led us to form Prospect Growth, which is the company we're a part of. And it was from there that we started probably about a year ago, like really seriously engaging with the company and thinking about like paths forward. One of the first things we did was we went to the Blueprint program at the Engine, which is the sort of like accelerator VC in the Boston area. And they sort of like help you kind of like formalize your thoughts around next steps. And that was where we were introduced to the Activate program. And I feel like after that, really got focused in on pursuing the fellowship because like everybody who is a part of it only has positive things to say, and I can now see why. And I would just say like prior to seeing like Activate and sort of this journey over the past year, something that I just think is like, I don't know, maybe important to say is like I never thought of myself as like going to be this like entrepreneur. Like I didn't like, read startup books. I didn't like dream of being in this position. It was something where like honestly, I thought, like, who am I to kind of apply to Activate? Like, I'm just some guy who's like a background in science and maybe has like a dream for technology. But fortunately, that turned out to be enough, and it's living to Activate, and it's been a great 2 months so far. I can already tell that the next 22 months are going to be really solid.
That is a great summary. Thanks, Wyatt, for that. Carla, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Kerrigan, and great to see everyone here. My name is Carla. I'm the founder and CEO of Expand Power, building a novel smart transformer for the grid that is smaller, safer, and smarter than what's currently out there. A little bit about me. I grew up in South Florida on the Everglades. Spent a lot of time kayaking and canoeing and scuba diving as well. Really fun childhood, but definitely got me interested in the environment and how precious it is and how important it is to protect it. So I went to MIT for my undergrad and my master's in electrical engineering and power electronics, and really fascinated with the idea of applying higher frequency power electronics to climate challenges. So started a PhD at Stanford, took a class of Stanford Climate Ventures that was really helpful in channeling and finding applications for what I was working on, and the rest is history. Met a few different Activate fellows during that class and realized that they were all really wonderful and how supportive and wonderful the program was. So took a leave of absence for my PhD and applied to Activate last year actually, but didn't get it and reapplied this year and got it.
Thank you for that, Carla. And last up, Patrick.
Hi, good to see you there, Carlo, too, one of my fellow electric grid Activate teams here. So I'm co-founder CEO of Flux. We're supporting economic and reliable renewable energies with long duration grid scale energy storage. So our core innovation is the chemistries, that battery active materials, the membranes that go inside flow battery for grid scale energy storage. We're about the 1 kilowatt scale today and trying to plan our first customer demos. A little bit about my background is I grew up in the Midwest. I basically just grew up as a big chemistry nerd. Went to a small undergrad liberal arts college in the middle of nowhere, and got the chance to do summer research at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign one summer on lithium-ion batteries. So that's really what opened me into the clean energy transition and the electrification space. I decided to go to grad school for my chemistry PhD and ended up at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And from day one, I wouldn't say I knew I wanted to do startup. Once again, like I didn't think that was a possibility either at that stage. But I knew I wanted to do something that would see like technologies go outside of the lab and make an impact in real life. So in addition to doing my chemistry PhD, I did an energy analysis and policy certificate in graduate school, taking a lot of interdisciplinary classes and like policy, sustainability, business, meeting all sorts of folks. On the PhD side in chemistry, I had a rather unique experience where I was the first grad student in a brand new academic lab. It was just me, myself, and a postdoc to get started. And those are our three co-founders of Flux today. But similar journey where we didn't know we were going to do startup at all right away in 2019. We just did a bunch of research with the goal of seeing it go out of the lab. And we got lucky with some breakthroughs on flow battery, filed some patents in 2021. And really, the tech transfer office at the University of Wisconsin-Madison directed us through their university lean startup training program, then went through NSF I-Core, went through the engine blueprint, which Wyatt brought up as well. And then that's really what led us to apply to Activate and just keep this like train going, right? All the way to where we are today. So I'm 14 months into Activate, still nothing but good things to say about the program, and excited to talk more about it with you all today.
Perfect. Three great summaries. Thank you for those. So the next thing, we'll keep going about the Activate Fellowship and the application specifically, Patrick. If you don't quite remember your challenges, you can skip out on this question. But for Carla and Wyatt, can you share some insights into your application process for the fellowship? Were there any challenges that you can remember facing while applying, and how did you overcome them?
Um, it takes a lot of time, but I think it's really useful as an exercise for a first-time founder and for someone who's just starting out to really put a lot of thought into the questions, into the technology, into the vision of where you want this to be going. So I don't think it's something that can be done like in a night. I think it's a very thoughtful exercise about who you are, why do you want to start a company, and where do you want this company to go. Wyatt, do you wanna go?
Yeah. I think for me, I remember talking with my managing director, Dan, who's like sort of like your advisor in this process early on before I had applied. And I was asking him like like what do you look for in applicants? And like for him, he said the number one thing that he looks for or Activate looks for in that context at that time was like coachability. Because I think they don't expect you to come in like being this perfect like Elon Musk entrepreneur. They're like they know that you have potential and like want to cultivate you. And so I think I don't know, I kind of took that as like a mantra for my application and like try to like not like overplay it and like, make myself out to be this like hyper coachable person that I wasn't, but just like think about really the areas where I felt like I wanted growth and being honest about that and like being honest about my faults. And then also like the same way, like presenting the technology, the vision, in a way that like, I don't know, maybe like has a grand aspiration. But again, like not trying to be a perfectionist. And I would say like, since I've been in Activate and like I got this impression early on was that like everybody in it is like super smart and they'll like see through you if you try and like, play yourself up. So just be honest, I guess. They're looking for people who have rough edges, so don't like worry about it too much.
Yeah,
I love
to add on, oh, sorry. To add on to that, I think that the community is, we mentioned earlier, but I think the community is the most important part of the fellowship. So I think it's really important to be, I think a good fit for the fellowship is someone who is willing to contribute to that community and willing to help everyone along because you're also getting a lot of help.
Perfect. Thank you for those answers, Patrick. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just agree completely with what's been said, especially Wyatt's point about just being genuine in that application process. So like they want to see your personality come across and like they're investing more so in you as a person than you as a company. So I think it's just very important to be genuine, like show your strengths and your weaknesses. Yeah, so like Wyatt said there too.
Definitely great advice. I would agree. So now switching gears just a little bit to talk about the reason why you're here. You choosing your community and the different situations and the different perspectives that all three of you had. So the next question I have for you is what factors did you consider most important when selecting your community? And how did you weigh these factors against your own personal and possibly professional goals? I will pass it back to Patrick to answer this one first.
Yeah, sounds good. So I've always been in the Midwest my whole life. So grew up in St. Louis, went to college in Missouri, up in grad school in Madison. So I definitely wanted to stay in the Midwest, which was what's so great about the Activate Anywhere community is they can meet you where you're at. So that's the one I applied to and got fortunate enough to get accepted into. The other thing to consider is like the network we have here in Wisconsin is very strong actually for what we're trying to do. So in terms of building the business, it also just made sense to stay where you're at. And I know that might sound strange if you're familiar with like grid energy storage. You might think of somewhere like California, Berkeley would be great. Or now the Houston community is open. But sometimes it's about like opportunity divided by competitive space as well too, right? So those are bigger markets, but there's also a lot of other teams in those communities. Whereas where we're at in the Midwest is the ecosystem around us is very willing and supportive of what we're doing. So personal reasons and because of the business ecosystem we built here over the last couple of years as well.
I can take a stab at this. So I was based in Boston when I was applying to Activate both times, and I chose Berkeley both times because I felt like, well, I always wanted to move back to California. Spent a lot of time in Boston. I really do like the West Coast a lot, but I also felt that there was a really good fit with the lab space and the Berkeley agreement with Cyclotron Road that was really has been really helpful for us, accessing the staff, accessing the facilities when the time comes is all really important to continue to consider. And I also think that California has a lot of interest in new transformers, particularly, and utilities that have this specialized desire to expand in terms of their power electronics. So it's a combination for me, personal as well as where do I think this company can grow, and where is there the most network and ecosystem for that.
I like how we have like an interesting Venn diagram of like I'm from the Midwest and I love the Midwest. I'll die for the Midwest. But now I'm in Boston, which is where you just left. But yeah, for me it was like pretty early on, like me and my co-founder, even before Activate, like sat down and we said like essentially where would we want to live, both for a function of like us in terms of career prospects, in terms of startup prospects, and then also like we both have partners and it's like where would they be able to work at and get a job and also be interested in living. And for us, like although maybe at some point in my life I aspire to sneak back to the Midwest, we were like for now, like Boston is probably where we would find like most livable. Like I'm currently in New Haven because I'm moving up to Boston still. But like I wasn't like I could go to New York or Boston either way, and they both have great ecosystems and like both great programs. But it ultimately came down to like I think we just found it more livable. Like it was just totally kind of a personal preference. And I think that's, you know, very much okay because you're committing to 2 years. And so like if you don't like the area, you know, I think you'll feel it. But yeah, I've been super happy in Boston so far.
And again, three different perspectives. I like how you came back and said how it was a Venn diagram because it definitely is. I think that that's super interesting. What I do want to I want to highlight on kind of the unique experiences that each three of you have had in your different communities because you've each had three different experiences. Can you share a story or experience that highlights how your community has influenced your entrepreneurial journey? I know Carla and Wyatt, you all just started, but I know there's probably one highlight from your past few months that has probably helped to influence or shape your time here that you've been at Activate. And then the second question on to that is what unique benefits have you experienced by being in your chosen location that you have benefited from?
I don't mind giving a crack at this first. So the first part of the question is, I guess, a story that of impact of your community. So I can actually just give an example from today. So I'm part of the Anywhere community. So we're mostly remote. We do virtual community program every other week. We meet up in person optionally once a quarter. So we're going to Denver later this month to meet up. Um, and so we don't get the opportunity to see each other in person as often, but the virtual community like actually works very well, and I'm excited. I'm more than happy to expand on that later. But we also use Slack sort of as a living space. So for example, we're gearing up for a seed fundraise. So I was really just talking today to other Anywhere fellows on Slack about their ongoing fundraising processes, complaining about investors a little bit, talking about like similarities, even though we're completely different spaces, right? We do grids, there's people in like space and energy or all sorts of different fields, but there's a lot of similar knowledge spillover you can share based on experiences. So just like constantly having resources, and this sort of translates into the second part of the question, which was what is the biggest like aspect or benefit of the community is just like not feeling crazy all the time, right? So definitely like being in like an entrepreneur in Midwest, right, where there's not as many entrepreneurs, you know, like as in Boston or California, it's not like a built-in community already with a bunch of other entrepreneurs where you can have this knowledge sharing. So it's really been unique about the Anywhere community is like being able to have that community of founders, but like not have to relocate, right, to get that community of founders. So it definitely helps with the sanity and it definitely helps us um, like avoid mistakes that other founders have perhaps made or learned through their experience as well.
I really resonate with what you said 'cause I feel like the community is such a it's it's such a nice support system to have. If you're like searching for legal help or if you do want to talk about VCs or if you're just kind of having a rough day and you're like, oh, this like photo didn't turn out like how I wanted it to. It's a really big support system that has been really valuable for me. And especially the alums, and so there's 2 years of the fellows, so there's Patrick is a year above them, like Wyatt and all, and having those who have gone through it and are just a little bit ahead of you to be able to give you guidance in some areas that you need, I have found really, really, really awesome. I'm gonna try to answer the question.
No worries. White, did you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think they've kind of both hit on kind of what I was gonna say. I know like to everybody on the call, I know it sounds like we've all been planted to like talk about the community. And I remember like when I was applying, I was like, these people are like overplaying the community. Like it can't be like that. But I think it really is because it's like so much of this like entrepreneur journey, which like to me is still pretty young. Like there might be people on this call who are further along than I am even, but a lot of it is you like feel like you're crazy or like you feel like you're making these decisions that like feel uniquely consequential. And I'm just like thinking about like one experience that was like it was honestly just like venting that was really beneficial for me like a couple weeks ago where like me and my co-founder were like having this like heated debate about hiring and we're like, oh, this feels like such like a big thing we're stressing about and it feels like the end of the world. And then I was talking with another fellow at the programming the next day and she's like, oh, we're trying to raise right now and like our investors want us to change our entire business. And it was just kind of like that moment of empathy where you're just like, wow, like I don't know, like things can suck, but like it's nice. It sounds maybe bad, but like that everybody can work through the suck together. And like you see these people that I think you're like I'm very impressed by, and I'm like, okay, like if they're working through these hard things just like I am, like it gives me something to aspire to, and I feel like it's just like I don't know, it's encouraging to have others around you working through the same problems, sort of like the other two said.
Thank you for those. And I'm going to keep it on the communities actually, but this might be a hard question actually. What is one thing you wish you had known about choosing your community before you applied?
I don't
No
know if
feel.
it's something that like I would have like been a big decision maker for me, but it's something that honestly might have motivated me more. Like at least up in Boston, it's like I would say our community is like pretty goofy. Like there's like programming is like, there's serious things we get down to and have like very important discussions. But like half the time it's just like you're in the room with like 20 friends and you're just kind of cracking jokes. And like I think knowing that it was both like a professional community, but also like a community of like, I don't know, like friends and you can like be comfortably in yourself. I think that's something that yeah, like maybe would have enticed me even more than it did.
Think for me, it goes back to kind of that holistic experience. Like, yeah, we're all doing work here, but we're still gonna have a good time while we're doing it as well. That's important with that balance. Healthy fun. Healthy fun.
Yeah, and
How about
I thought, sorry. Yeah, I touched on this before, but just the fact that the Anywhere virtual community actually does work. The so we meet up in quarterly, like once a quarter, and it's like surprises me every time how close we feel to the other fellows, even though we only get to see each other in person once every few months. The other fun part about the Anywhere community is usually these quarterly trips are um, to other communities. Like, for example, last year we went to New York, Houston, and Berkeley. And the fun part of that is you get to kind of be like party crashers and other communities. So you just like also get to network in the Anywhere community with the other Activate communities as well. So I actually like also have formed some good close relationships with some of the New York fellows and some of the Berkeley or Boston fellows, since we just get to go visit those spaces more often through planned programming.
Carla, do you have anything to add? Go ahead.
I'm not sure. I feel like I love my community. I think they're really, really great and really supportive, and it's really like having a group of friends who are all going through the same thing and can all motivate and find and brainstorm and yeah, just go through this journey together. As a solo founder, I found that to be, I think, the most valuable part of the community or of the fellowship.
Okay. And to close us out before we go over just a little bit more information and open it up for Q&A, to leave the audience, you all have given so much advice, but one last piece. What advice would you give to someone who is considering starting their own business and pursuing this entrepreneurial pathway if they haven't started it yet, but are thinking about it, just starting their company or considering applying to Activate?
I can take this one. I think I thought about this a lot before, and it's you cannot give up hope. It's gonna get really hard, and some days you're gonna be like, why am I doing this? And why me? Like, why this like for a younger career person in this great big world that's already been established with all these other incumbents? And I think it's really, really important to realize that it is going to be a long journey, but that you have the support and encouragement, and that you shouldn't give up because you can do it.
I love that advice. Patrick White, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I second Carla. I think there's like a lots of ups and downs. Like they're pretty wild. Like you win a big grant and you're like, I'm on top of the world. And then like, your tech transfer office tells you that they don't want a license or something, and you're like, I'm gonna die. Like you really like go over these big crazy inflections. But I think like, and maybe Carla touched on this a little bit, and I think it's something that often I talk about with other people is like, I don't know, like I think once you're here, it can feel stressful, but like maybe being intentional about like taking a step back and like thinking about where you are. And I know it sounds like a little bit tropish, but like if your younger self, like you at like 16, saw like what you were doing and like the members of, the people you're around and like the problems you're facing, like what you're trying to aspire to do, I think you would be like very impressed with your older self. And I think just like, even though we are at the bottom of a mountain, like trying to overcome that, we've also kind of like just by being here, you've overcome a mountain, and just like taking a moment to recognize that, I think can be like, um, you know, nice at points.
Yeah, I guess my advice and maybe this would just be like having this learning mindset, which I like. It was easy for me just like being like a researcher, right? That's always what you're trying to do through research is learn new things, but like trying to bring that to entrepreneurship as well. And I think this sort of like actually maybe goes back to our earlier question about what another thing that surprised me about the Activate community is like it's like also about this learning mindset and having humility and not like trying to compare yourselves to like everybody other startups around you. So it's about just seeing progress and improvement in your personal growth, and your team's growth will result in company success. And if you're honest with what you need to learn, then you can get connected with the resources you need to make those things happen.
Virtual round of applause for Wyatt, Carla, and Patrick. Thank you all for giving your thoughts, your opinions, your perspectives. Wonderful, wonderful advice. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'm going to jump into just quickly our eligibility requirements and to finish out this presentation as well as our application timeline. And then we're going to spend the rest of the time on just opening up the floor to the Q&A. I see some questions have been in the chat, so thank you for dropping those. We will get to those in just a moment. Alrighty, I am going to share my screen once again. So, if you're interested in applying to the Activate Fellowship in about a month, as applications are about to open, to be eligible for acceptance into the fellowship, you must have a bachelor's degree and 4+ years of post baccalaureate scientific research, engineering, or technology development experience. You must be leading the commercial development of a hardware based technology innovation for the first time if awarded the fellowship, or otherwise not a repeat hard tech founder. You must be committed full time to the proposed project or company if awarded the fellowship. You must be legally able to work in the US for the duration of the fellowship, and this does include those who are on work authorization. You would just need to communicate your plans for having that work authorization for the duration of the fellowship in your application. And finally, you must be able to communicate proficiently in English. Your proposed project or company must be based in the physical, biological sciences, or related engineering disciplines, or otherwise falling under one or more of our 16 verticals that we support. You must be still in development and not yet ready for full scale product sales at the time of the application deadline. And finally, you must not have raised more than $2 million in debt or equity funding from non governmental sources at the time of the application deadline. So things like early investments, early funding that you might get in, there is a $2 million cap on that for any governmental funding like SBIRs, STTRs, grant funding. There is not a cap on that. To continue on with our application timeline, again, I mentioned that applications open in about a month. They officially do open on September the 4th and close on October the 23rd. After that, we're going to go into our rigorous selection process over the winter to gear up for finalist week, which is our favorite week of the year. Where about 15 to 20 applicants per community are going to deliver a virtual pitch to our ecosystem, really talking about their plans for the fellowship with their technology as well as more about themselves for us to select our fellows in April for the fellowship to begin with the annual retreat in June. With that, I will now open it up to Q&A. So again, I saw that we had some questions in the chat. I believe that all of those have been answered, but if there are any that I need to call out, Rick or Josh, please let me know. Otherwise, you are more than welcome to use the bottom screen on the React tab. It's a little heart. You can use that heart to then click on the reaction tab to find the raise hand function. Once you find that raise hand function, please click that just as Alexi has done to hop into the queue. With no further ado, Alexi, please ask your question.
Hi, thank you very much for organizing this and for sharing your experience. My question is on three of you, and maybe especially Patrick Sullivan. Patrick, because I'm also interested in joining from Northwestern, where I am right now. But what are the conditions? Like, if I were to stay here, say at Northwestern, I could use the local incubator, and and use the workshop and all the equipment and facilities we have at the university. So what's special about, I guess, my question about say Boston or California, Berkeley, and so on, in terms of how you could access resources from the university for research?
So from the Anywhere community, they would definitely like support you working at a Northwestern space and utilizing those resources. There's actually an Anywhere team that works out at was like the co-innovate incubator space at Northwestern. As to how these relationships work with the other communities, I'll leave it to those communities to maybe expand on that.
Yeah, so for Boston, there's like, I think Activate has like good relationships with the engine as well as Greentown Labs. And so I think you can get like some discounts there, and like they know everybody at those spaces. Boston's got a bazillion lab spaces. Like there's no shortage of places to go. And I would say like for the current fellows, there's like a whole smattering of what people are choosing. We're likely settling on like a space that's leased by UMass Amherst, just because we're like doing agriculture, and it like affords us some access to that university, which has some good agricultural standing. But I would say it's like Activate like never tells you to do anything. They'll like give you advice, but if you like have a reason to use a particular space, like that's totally a good reason.
So for Berkeley, the Berkeley community has a partner. So if you're a Berkeley fellow, you're also a Cyclotron Road fellow, which is one of the Department of Energy's LEAP nodes. So you also get got like 2 fellowships, basically. But the cyclotron road facilities that we have access to are at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and it's completely free to use. You just have to you have to finish something called the CRADA, which is this document that allows you to work in Berkeley Lab but maintain your IP. And I haven't accessed it yet, so it takes a few months to fully finalize. But the fellows a year above me, most of them are in Berkeley Lab, and they found it to be really useful, and the staff and the scientists there to be really helpful as well.
So you can access, is it similar to as being like a postdoc or a PhD student that you can access like any, workshop or like discount rates for clean rooms and stuff like this? Is this similar in all the communities? So you basically have the same status, kind of like a postdoc researcher, and you don't pay much as a company and so on and so forth. This maybe a general question to Kerrigan.
For
I just don't quite understand the relationship, like as a startup with the universities or this incubators and so on.
What I will say, Alexei, for like specifics on the relationships, I will say if you want to send us an email to apply@activate.org, because it can be specific, but also it might have to deal with your specific situation, is kind of what it sounds like to me. So send us an email and we can talk further on your questions and I think your situation to get a little bit more
Okay.
information.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Knav, I see your hand is next. You're more than welcome to ask your question.
Yeah, hello, y'all. I have a question. So on your eligibility criteria, you mentioned like you need a post bachelor degree as well. What about the master's? Do I need to have a PhD?
Yeah, so PhD is not necessary. So again, the bachelor's degree is the only necessary degree for this, but you do need 4 years of post-baccalaureate experience. So whether you did get your master's degree, that would count as 1 year post-baccalaureate experience if you did any kind of research, tech development, which typically you do. If you were to go get your PhD, that would already count for your 4 years. So basically at the end or at your graduation of that program, you would be eligible for the fellowship. What this does entail, if you do not have a master's or a PhD, you would essentially just need 4 years of experience that falls under those 3, which could be in any industry that you choose, or if it definitely I would say it's a plus if it translates back to your project particularly, but in essence, you would just need that 4 years of experience. But again, if you have just a bachelor's degree, that industry experience is fine. I hope
All
that
right,
helps.
thank you.
You're welcome. Mary, you are next.
All right, well, thanks very much for this. I was wondering about how to make sure that I keep track of all the opportunities as they come up and make sure that I use all the resources as we're preparing for our application and probably afterward. I worry that I miss things. So how can we make sure we don't?
What I would say is definitely taking notes, coming to webinars like this to hear the experiences live and be able to ask your questions real time is definitely the most helpful. What I would say is if you're not able to attend webinars, again, we post all of them on YouTube. Also, if you RSVP to the event and you're unable to attend, we typically send the slides and the recording out after as well. I would say keeping a little notebook to really see the opportunities for the questions that you have, for the things that you need to continue to figure out. I will also kind of call out our Learn module or a techno-economics. We have videos as well as kind of a little bit of coursework on our website at activate.org/learn. That helps you with kind of setting a little bit of a cost model and doing a little bit of early analysis if you haven't done so before, which will help influence and help you build a more compelling application. What I will also call out about those events is just kind of like a final call out. Attending our webinars are really the best way where you can really craft a good perspective and really get information from kind of A to Z. We do have application specific webinars. I think we'll be having 3 particular this year. So we're gonna be having one just kind of talking about the application and the specifics, and then we're gonna be having one special one which is new that's gonna be talking about the overcoming the biggest challenges. So things like picking your community, things like trying learning how just tips and tricks on how to communicate your tech based on the different stages you might be in, little different tips and tricks like that is what we'll be having. So I would say definitely just staying updated, definitely signing up for updates if you haven't done so already to get those emails, because we definitely send a lot of emails, or we will be over the next 6 weeks while the application cycle is open. So emails and coming to those events will be my recommendation. Nah, you're next.
Yeah, thank you so much for the information provided today. I have a question regarding how far along I need to be in my research or in my project in order to qualify to be successfully applied to Activate Fellowship. Do I need to have a company registered? Do I have to show pilot already? So what's your experience?
Yes. So you do not have to have a company established or incorporated at the time of the application deadline. It's just really communicating those plans for the technology readiness level, or I would say kind of those stages. The earliest stage is going to be ideation phase with initial lab results or early proof of concept. Basically, you have this idea, you do have some viability that it could work, but it's communicating the reasons and the things that you still need to continue to de-risk that technology to take it to the next level. I would say that that's the earliest stage that we accept. The latest stage that we accept is going to be still that early working prototype or somewhat of a working prototype, but still needs some de-risking to happen over the fellowship. So anywhere in between that, but definitely that's the earliest and the latest stage.
Can I have a relevant follow-up? Because Carla mentioned you applied twice, and the first time you didn't succeed, and second time you did. Would you mind sharing your experience on what differs and what helps you succeed? Thank you.
Yeah, basically, if you don't get in the first time you apply, you can have a feedback call with the Activate MD of the community you applied to, and they can help give you feedback for what they think your application could use. And I made a lot of technical development work between my first application and my second one, had a lot more hardware to show. And I also had several letters of support that really, I think, turned the knob over for us.
I will also call out and mention there, thank you, Carla, for that answer. I will mention that not all Activate applicants do receive feedback. Our policy right now is if you make it past a certain stage in our selection process, you will have the opportunity for a feedback call with that MD. But pretty much once you start to meet the community teams, that is the opportunity or the chance in which we can provide that robust and kind of accurate feedback. We just cannot provide it to every applicant or every person who applies. Although we wish we could, we just don't have the bandwidth as a team. So again, I will call that out, that not everyone does receive feedback on their application unless you make it to a certain stage. But thanks for that question, or for that question as well as that answer, Carla. Alexi, I have another question.
Yeah, if nobody else wants to ask because I had already an opportunity to ask. But my question is, I'm trying to figure out still, and thanks, Patrick, for how to write the proposal, not in terms of how exactly, although this is also super important, but also just the simple questions of like 5 pages or 20 pages. I've even, ran through all the webinars or most of them through AI and like generated text and asked ChatGPT what was asked, what was told about this, like what was talked about this. There's really little. So because it's not that, I mean, I can write 20 pages, I can write 30 pages, right? But it's very different writing 2 pages or 20. So what are the kind of, maybe not general, but sort of requirements, or what are
I can give you some context. Yeah, I can give you some context. So there's a reason why the Activate application is not visible. It is subject to change every year, but also it is not your typical kind of grant application or standard application. What I will call out and highlight about the application is it's 5 parts, I believe. The first part, you're going to be talking about you. So just giving us some more information about yourself and your background. The second portion talks about your specific goals for the fellowship and how you plan to show up as a person, and kind of the goals that you're looking for. Again, that kind of professional development side, or to get to know you more as a person. Then it gets into the tech. So I think the tech is also split into two sections. So the first section is going to be talking about the technology, the innovation, the process, really the research that you have been doing, and really talking about that process and its viability. On the other hand, we will also ask for some company information if you do have that. So if you have been incorporated, if you have been working on this for a number of years or do have a team, we also ask that information. Within that, I will say it's really just a question and answer with a word limit of about 300 to 500 words. Within that, I will say we also asked for some technical slides as well. There's more information on that, so I can't give you the specifics to create it now. You'll just have to wait for September the 4th when you can access
Okay.
the
So there will
application.
be also a guiding process, right? Like with the SBIR speech
Definitely.
and so on. So it's not just like submit it and then whatever you
No,
think is appropriate.
not at all. So yeah, once the application opens on September the 4th, you'll take that quick eligibility quiz, and then you'll have access into that application. You'll be able to see everything from start to finish. And so I guess I'll give my recommendation for that. Go in and just look at the application from start to finish. Write the questions down, pull the questions out, copy and answer them. And then, as Carla said, don't do it in one night. But think about those questions and start to craft your answers. You have about 6 weeks to complete
I
it
would
before
start now. I've started now if I would know exactly. So you're writing. Yeah.
You'll have to wait a couple of weeks. I'm sorry, Alexi, you'll have to wait.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the answer.
You're welcome. I hope that helped, though. I hope that helps some. Okay. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah. So we are a two-person startup. In 1983, William Todorov got a patent for 22.5% efficient solar thin film when NASA was paying $100 a watt for 14% efficient, and commercial was 9 to 11% efficient. And since then, now we're doing proof of concept for batteries and stuff. But in terms of, so he is the technical person and I'm the business person, and I'm not technically called a founder. I'm the director of marketing and international development, and he is the founder, CTO, and board chair. So is there a fit there? Is there a way to deal with that? Because like usually I represent his side too. And normally that's what I'm doing. I'm doing the communication.
Yeah, I can help you with that, Mark. So in this case, your co-founder or the technical person should actually be the Activate Fellow. They should be the person who can technically, but also potentially, with the business acumen that you do receive as a benefit of the fellowship, you should be able to also technically, but be the CEO as well. So they should be the Activate Fellow since they do have the technical experience, but that does not exclude you. So as that co-founder, you could apply as a two-person team. With the two-person team, or the affiliate fellow that will be applying, or the secondary applicant that will be applying on the application, you do have to meet some of the eligibility requirements, but I will say there is more flexibility there for you. So in the case that you don't have a technical degree, but you still want the benefits of the fellowship, that is fine, and you would still be able to apply as more of the business lead in this sense. Although you'll still both get the benefits of the fellowship if you're awarded the fellowship, and so you'll both be getting that business acumen training and those benefits of the
So I'm
fellowship.
sorry I came in late, but A, I'm not legally a founder, and B, he doesn't have a lot of time and bandwidth for participating in stuff. He's focused on doing the experiments, getting the proofs of concept done, and so there's that. Another thing is that I have a lot of experience, and I've gone through 4 incubators. So it isn't only what we can get, it's what we can give, and it's how we can fit additional knowledge and also connections with resources into what we already do and know.
Still sounds like you're eligible to me. I will say that with having, that Activate fellowship, a lot of the fellowship is still, using your time to meet your goals for your company. So if that's what that looks like, and that means that you need to be in the lab outside of, and maybe you're picking up, the customer discovery and those customer conversations,
Yeah,
both still coming
definitely.
programming, once a week on Thursdays. I think that you still sound acceptable to me for sure. I would say send me an email if you have any more questions, because I want to get this last question before we close out, because we are at time. Send me an email at apply@activate.org if you have any additional questions on your specifics. But again, sound pretty eligible to me, Mark. Have a conversation with him and then let me know if you have any more questions that come from it. And Hongji, last question.
Hi, thank you. So my question is, so what's the rough number of the admission rate? I know like different locations have different rate, and related to this question, so what's a features or points like you guys are looking at, kind of like that we can focus on, kind of like get a higher successful rate? Yeah.
I see where you're going. And so the first thing that I'll mention here is we have around a 10% success rate or acceptance rate. So again, this does look a little different per community because, as we all know, the Anywhere community is very popular. So again, they are going to receive more applications than our in-residence communities, just because a lot of people are looking to kind of forward their technologies from their own communities, which is perfectly fine. But we only have about 10 to 12 slots per community for teams. So that does not change, but that does mean that the acceptance rate does change. So again, I think the highlight that I'll mention here is Anywhere does receive more applications than the in-residence communities. The second thing that I'll mention with this is on the application, you can rank choice your community. So you don't have to choose just one. You can choose all 5 communities if you want and rank choice those. You also have to provide justification. So again, kind of as we touched on with this webinar and as each of the fellows have touched on, it's really the benefits that they knew that they would receive for either their company or their personal growth as to the reason why that they chose that community. So I wouldn't exactly think about it. Well, I would probably only take that information as Anywhere gets more applications and kind of leave it there, because you should really be thinking about where you want to live for the next 2 years and where you think your company has the most success over the next 2 years. You are more than welcome to leave the state or that city after the fellowship. But during that 2 years, you are expected to stay there. And so that's why you really turn it back onto you, is where do you want to grow? And so I think I'll leave it there, but I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. And so again, I just want to close us out now. So again, if you have not signed up for to receive communications, Rick just kind of dropped that in the chat. So you can go to activate.org/apply to sign up to receive emails for when applications open. For any questions that we did not answer today, you can email us at apply@activate.org to get your questions answered. You can attend the rest of our events at our events page, and you can always watch past webinars at youtube.com/activate fellows. We will have one more application application webinar before applications kick off on August the 22nd. If you have applied to the Activate Fellowship before, we'll be giving some tips and tricks on what you need to think about and how you need to communicate those updates for this year. Lastly, I will say before you all go, I will be dropping and sending a poll to you all. If you would please fill it out and let us know how your experience was today. If there's anything that we did not touch on that you might want us to have a webinar on in the future, and just letting us know how your experience was today. After you have finished that poll, you are more than welcome to leave the webinar. But again, I thank you for joining us today and hope that you all have a great weekend.